Well, hey, before we get started with this amazing episode, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Well, welcome to another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. I'm your host, Josh Dietrich, and today, physically here in the house in St. Michael, I have Mr. Sean Westbrook. Mr. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, Sean is a friend, a fellow bike rider. We've done a couple 100-mile trips together.
Yeah, crazy.
And I suppose countless miles,
Yes.
that happened along the way as we're learning to ride. Actually, I think we both started at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. A little over 2 years ago. Yeah.
And the first time going in, I think your gear was just like mine. We didn't have any.
No, I had no clue how to use the gears. Probably the first 20-minute ride, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me.
I mean, it's intimidating the first time you're out there, especially when you're riding with some of these guys with these massive calves, like right. Caleb. Oh. You're like trying to keep after him, like, who is this guy?
Right.
Which is cool. And I think what's awesome is that we met in a non-church environment, but going to the same church.
Right.
Like, hey, we're doing this bike ride, and I'm saying I'm doing this bike ride, and turns out you're a fellow entrepreneur, a fellow father, husband of 2 kids, live right down the road here in Hanover. And so glad to have you on the show. The Successfully Unsuccessful show is talking to everyday dudes who are doing big things and making progress and learning as we go, and focused on becoming the version of yourself that you're most proud of. And really at the heart of it is the core of our faith, and being able to serve God in the work we do in our homes. And so I'm glad to have you on. Kind of just opening up, why don't you tell us the origin story? So I'll frame it up for you a little bit. You're a professional, went to college, looks like you worked at an IT type of company, and maybe something prior, but you cut your teeth in building relationships and doing sales. Yeah. I'm guessing you had the itch or the hunger to do your own thing, or maybe you saw an opportunity and you said, hey, let's give it a shot, or what?
Yeah, I think it was a culmination of a lot of things, both my upbringing and 11 years in the industry, and certain things that happened that made things kind of fall into place, and eventually to even have that thought of having that idea. So I think it was a culmination of a lot of things. Probably first just starting with my upbringing, and my dad was a 30-year journeyman in sales, and while raising a family, and I saw that he was successful doing that, and I think I always saw maybe sales would be a thing for me. And, so I saw how he worked hard, and how he was also there for our family, and for myself and my sister, for sporting events, and growing up with that. He was always, always there for that, but worked hard, He worked hard, and we took a lot of trips together. He provided for our family, and, so definitely a role model in that regard, and kind of always saw that maybe that would be a future for me, like getting out in sales. And then my mom, she can't be forgotten in all of this. I think that's kind of where I get my calmness and the kindness from, and which is probably both good and bad. It's great from personal, from a personal aspect and relational. How I'm, pretty mellow and low key. But maybe some detriment in some regard too. But no. So I owe a lot to them just for the upbringing, and I would say my competitiveness in sports is probably a big reason why I eventually got to where I'm at too. Growing up playing basketball and baseball, and being around the right people, doing things that were fun, and that would push me to the limits. So
you were in basketball, baseball, and football.
Basketball, baseball, a little bit of sprinkle in a little bit of football for a couple of years, but basketball and baseball eventually were my focus. From maybe like 4th grade on through high school, and I took to basketball a little more, and that ended up being the sport that I focused on more so year round. And
captain of the basketball team I saw.
Yeah, I was co-captain
Nice.
with a good friend of mine who eventually was a groomsman in my wedding.
Oh,
And my best man in my wedding was somebody I grew up playing baseball with. So, just aligning yourself with the good people growing up, and those are two people that are still really good friends to this day. But I think just the upbringing and in sports and especially with sports and that competitive drive, that leads well with sales and wanting to beat out the other guy.
right,
and,
totally.
And
in sports, there's that level of competitive nature, right? And trying to compete and for what you can get. So you go through this process of life, and you see your father setting an example. He's home, so he gives you that balance, and that's a good story, because a lot of times you see hardworking fathers aren't always home.
Right.
And so you saw that, probably inspired you in many ways. It sounds like in your mother, and then leaving obviously the sports kind of taught you the discipline to show up and work hard as well. But then talk about your first job in sort of that season of life where you really were testing these things, that you learned, this upbringing you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, I did a few years in high school of like serving, like in a restaurant. So I did the restaurant setting for like 4 or 5 years, and I eventually got into a sales role, I think at about the age of 20, selling a sandpaper for an abrasives company, where I was literally cold calling like car and auto body shops and other companies that would buy sandpaper. And to be brutally honest, it was I did not like it.
Wow.
It was probably not for me. And one of the pitches that we had was, we'd send some sandpaper and you'd get like a free thing of peanuts or cashews as like a plus for this, for buying the sandpaper from us. We're going to send you a nice treat as well. So I cut my teeth in that. It was a good experience from like a cold calling perspective.
Yeah, smile and dialing, baby.
Smile and dial, dialing for dollars. So it was a good experience. But I think quickly into that, I know that this probably at least wasn't the place for me.
Yeah.
So during that time, I think I was applying, and eventually probably had like 6 or 7 interviews. And I eventually got this email at like 2 a.m. From a sales manager from what I find out is a international IT company. He says, "Hey, I want you to come in for an interview," and go in for that interview. He says what they're doing. We're selling pre-owned, refurbished, and or pre-owned new IT hardware, and we're reselling it. And companies are buying it at X, and we could buy it at Y and sell it at less than what these companies are buying it for. And I'm like, okay, this sounds neat. This sounds cool. And the spot where you're like, all right, you can make this base salary, and then you also have this unlimited earning potential with commission. And I was like, this is
that's what I've been looking for.
This sounds like a good opportunity, and it was. And I just kind of hit the ground running. I kind of got in on the ground floor from at least the this particular division within the company, where I was, I think, the second sales guy hired. It was this sales manager who was leading it, and then another guy that was hired probably a few weeks or a month before me. And it was like, hey, here's like a Hart Hanks list of numbers, and let's just start dialing. And I did that, and found out that I was pretty good at that, and always tried to find ways of thinking outside the box to get new business, and eventually was making good money, and found like I could work as hard as I want, and you could kind of define what you're gonna make by how much you work, and kind of cut my teeth in that for a long time. And I was with that company for 10 years, and there was some I was from the division that I was in, for probably a solid 4 or 5, 6 years. I was a top producer in that particular division, and things were going well. Go from early on in my career, like, 21 or so, was probably making six figures pretty early on, and I got that taste of that. And, where, some of my other, friends are, they're either still finishing up school or
unsure, right?
Unsure what they're going to do, or taking, entry level positions. While myself with schooling, I did 2 years at a community college, and I skipped that, going to a big 4-year school. So I did 2 years of community college, and then I literally started working in the profession while I was finishing up my 2-year degree. So it was crazy. The first 2 years of me, cutting my teeth in the industry, in the IT industry, I was doing full-time schooling while doing that.
Wow.
And I remember my last semester, I think I tried taking 19 credits to try to finish up, and that was crazy in itself. But I think I ended up pushing one class off to the side, like, let's finish this and the next semester. I'm like, I can't do 19
plus a full-time job.
Plus a full-time job.
Wow.
Albeit I was single at the time, so that's helpful. But I pushed one of those off to the side. So I always had that work ethic to work hard, play hard.
Yep.
Try to keep a good balance with personal life as well, and hanging out with friends. But working was a big part of my life at that point, and yeah, just work hard, and the sky's the limit. Some things happened within that company. One division split off, and where that was kind of the big cog in the company, and the big profit producer, revenue producer. That division split off, and that was a division where they would basically focus on almost like an off-brand, compatible brand, where
Sure.
you're selling a product that is compatible with Cisco, Juniper, HP, and at a fraction of the cost. And it was that's where a lot of the margin was being made. And then this division kind of split off. I was still selling it to enterprise clients, but that division split off, and I think was kind of where our particular division started to kind of go downhill, because there was only really a few of us that were producing, and while being part of an international company, some things kind of went downhill in that regard, and eventually led to our U.S. division, like, hey, we're gonna close the doors at some point. And
wow.
So I'm like, okay, now, and so there was kind of a light at the end of the tunnel of when this would happen. Then I got to think about what's next, and eventually I take more of a leadership, at least what I think was going to be a leadership role with a former colleague, and what he was doing elsewhere for another guy, and I'm like, oh, this sounds like a cool option, and I was kind of gonna head like a sales team and build a sales team. Never really got to that point, and things didn't work out there. I had an instance where I was on a 4-wheeling trip with some buddies, and I had what I would say probably close to a near death experience in that time, where I was driving a 4-wheeler at probably 55, 60 miles an hour, and I at the time hit maybe some C5 gravel, and I went literally veering towards a ditch, and like, yeah, kind of have to make a split second decision of, all right, am I jumping off this 4-wheeler, or am I going to stay and roll? And I think I kind of did a mixture of both, and I rolled the 4-wheeler, and by the grace of God, I only got broken jaw in 3 or 4 places, a messed up shoulder, but while knowing it could have been a lot worse.
Wow.
But I think that was kind of an eye opener for me from that perspective, and that was so that was at the beginning of taking a new position.
Yeah.
And at the time, we had myself and my wife, my now wife, we had a kid at that time. We'd probably talk about that a little bit as well. But so that was just kind of a crazy time, and I my jaw was probably wired shut for a period of time, and it's like trying to do sales and talk that,
right?
can't really do that. So it was more
yogurt diet, right?
Yogurt diet, and
liquids.
The only sales was probably, computer. So, it's an eye opener. It's like, it makes you take a step back. Eventually, that didn't work out, and we probably mutually agreed, this wasn't gonna work out, and I had a short stint elsewhere for a few months, and then opportunity presented itself, and to be honest, I was sitting in a an emergency room, or a medical setting where my now brother-in-law was literally going through an open heart surgery, and I'm sitting there, and he has a successful surgery. We find out that, hey, everything went well, and shortly after that, I'm sitting there talking to my wife like, I don't think this current role is for me, and I think I need to quit this, and we need to think about what's next. And so I went ahead and quit that job. I drove right to that my place of work, and I quit. And typically in sales, if you're going to quit, like there's
not no reason to stay. There's
not like 2 weeks, because a lot of bad could happen during that time. So it was like,
here's your 2 weeks pay and go.
Yeah. So that was it.
Yeah.
And I went home, and me and my wife talked and about what's next. And I think I want to take this opportunity and give it a shot on my own. So that's what we did. And, I had to kind of get her blessing, obviously. She probably at one point said, I don't know if I'll ever be okay with it. But she saw it in me that, I wanted to try this, and she wasn't gonna, stop me.
Yeah.
So I give her a lot of credit for that. And eventually gave it a shot, and and I guess here I am today, having my, successfully unsuccessful journey, and it's been a journey, and it's been a long road, but there was a lot to get to, to that point, and like I mentioned, meeting my now wife, and raising a family, and all that comes with that, and starting a business, and
incredible, man. So just to clarify too, was your wife working at this point or no?
Yeah. So
you had her income, right? So you're able to sort of step away and kind of focus on getting this thing off the ground.
Right. So she was a teacher for a solid probably 12 years or so. We met in Shakopee in
2013.
We met on Match.com, and I think we both lived in Shakopee at the time, didn't know it. And I think my profile said Minneapolis, and hers said Prior Lake, and we've eventually had a bunch of conversations on that platform, and eventually got to texting, and eventually led to a first date. And come to find out, we both live in Shakopee. We both have our own houses in Shakopee, and kind of hit it off from day one, and I think I proposed to her about 9 months after that, and got married probably 11 months after that, and had a kid. So got married in January of 15, and had a kid in January of 16. And
boom, you were busy.
Boom. And then it was March of 18 where I made that decision to start a business. And then so yeah.
So So you guys had your first kid, and she was working, but then obviously timing wise, was it summer that you maybe started it while she was home?
So it would have been March. So March of 18. So that's spring.
Yeah. Okay.
So she was at the time, she would have been, because we literally just moved to Hanover at the time, and she was finishing up. She was still working in Shakopee as a teacher.
Wow.
So she was commuting, 45, minutes, maybe a little longer a day.
Yeah.
And then she eventually took a position in Elk River, so she wouldn't have to travel as much.
Yeah.
And I think probably maybe a year and a half, 2 years in, it got to the point where, all right, business kind of off the ground. And she decided to stay at home, and then COVID hits, and all that craziness. But so she definitely provided that opportunity to just try to do my thing.
Right.
Which very thankful for that she would even be okay with that. Even though she wasn't totally, but she saw it in me.
Well, there's that risk, right? Yep. I mean, the reality is, did you have a real business plan at that point, or you kind of knew? Because I guess the launch of Choice IT Global, right, kind of comes back from some of your roots you mentioned earlier, right? Some of the skills in the industry. So, you go to your wife with this idea, it clicks. You're like, I think I know what I want to do. Walk us through, what you had to do to get it off the ground. Like, so then March of that year. So then that first year, what do you think you did in revenue, and kind of walk us through how you got it off the ground?
Yeah. First it's you start it, you do your Inc. filing, it started as a LLC, and do all that filing, and then it's like, all right, you got a business, you got a name. Now what? It's you go back to your sales roots, and it's dial for dollars, and it's pounding the phones, thinking outside the box with emails, and showing up at people's doorsteps, and trying to schedule trips, and doing conferences and shows. That was a crazy time, and eventually led to some good orders. And it's like, all right, start getting some of those orders, and like, all right, I think this is going to work. And then I eventually had to get a warehouse, because I'm getting pallets and pallets of equipment
to the house.
I think I took the approach of, all right, got a nice large deal coming in, and it's pallets. I'm like, I think it's time to try to get some space. And I came across somebody that had some space in Rogers, and I could take as little space as I wanted. And I think I maybe had like 400 square foot of warehouse space, this little patch in the warehouse, and then an office. And it allowed me to at least receive some equipment in. I had a dock where I could, if I needed to receive pallets in, I could do that. So it was a good place to be able to find from a physical place.
Well, size-wise, right? In the beginning stages, it probably wasn't too expensive.
Yeah,
and you could
there
probably
was some room
grow.
for growth.
Yeah,
which I like that
idea. Is it the
idea.
same place you're at now?
And crazy enough, it is the same place that I'm at now, and we probably have, I don't know, a few thousand square foot now.
Are you busting at the seams?
Yeah, we're probably running out of space at times, but it's been a good journey, and got a good team, great team that we have in front of the people that we have there. It's a good core, good group, and we all work well together. But yeah, crazy.
Walk us through that growth of that first year, though. What do you think you did in revenue, and over time? I mean, as you've talked about your business growing.
First year, it was it was 9 months. So started in March. So you probably have about, and then the first month is
figuring it out,
just trying to reach people. And then it was probably maybe I got my first deal in like April, and my first large deal in maybe May or June. I think May or June is when I got the space. And we probably finished with, maybe that first year, maybe like, 500,000 or 600,000, maybe like 400,000 in revenue. And,
pretty darn good first year.
Yeah. And so that was 9 months, and we probably had, close to, six figures margin and our profit. So it was good, it was a good first 9 months. So I'm like, all right,
incredible.
I think this is going to work,
yeah.
And that's, and I think I eventually that following year is when I hired my first two people, a sales guy and then a lead tech. And that's when the business really started to ramp up, and go from 400,000 to probably over $1 million.
Wow, that first full year then.
Yeah,
wow.
That was probably like maybe 1.2, and then got to 2020 is when I really started to try to bring some more people on. Hired my first guy that was going to focus on truly try to building a book of business on the end user and service provider perspective, and so he, kind of similar, he got in and started dialing for dollars, and here's calling a few thousand companies, and hopefully something sticks. And while I was also dialing for dollars myself, and it was kind of a cool environment of a couple people just dialing
boiler room
style. And I definitely don't have as much time for that today. But that the early stages is kind of where got us to where we are now. And
23 then, what'd you do in last year's revenue?
2023 we're probably pushed 5.5.
Cool.
So we went from 1.2 to 1.8 to 2, probably to 3, like 3.1. And then we almost probably had a double-digit growth, from in the last couple, or I'm sorry, like probably 2 times growth.
Yeah.
In the last few years, where it's it's kind of really taken off. We'll go from a team of 3 to a team of 9 full-time plus a part-time, plus a contractor as well. And so it's been a crazy journey, a lot of growth, a lot of success, and then obviously the navigating the business life, family life, and marriage, and raising kids and all that. That kind of comes with that.
Well, it kind of comes up quick too, because you're doing your thing, and it sounds like you're saying you're putting your head down, you're working hard. You're a single dude, and then obviously with your wife, it's just you and her for a minute, and then your first kid comes, and so now you're probably juggling, and you have her, that's able to give you that support, which is great. But I'm guessing you were pretty grinding, pretty well in the beginning. So what have you had to do now, sort of as you've seen your business grow, and as a sales guy, taking on new responsibilities, perhaps things you've never done before, right? To build out the team when you've been primarily trained as a sales guy.
Right.
What was that like, and having to learn to delegate, but then also in parallel, you're building a company, you're learning how to be a dad and a husband in a new way. So what were the challenges you faced through those? You had to have some growing pains on both ends.
Oh yeah.
Walk us through, maybe some of those challenges on the unsuccessful side.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest thing when I started the company was like, I could sell, but everything behind the scenes was, is
operational. Yep.
All that, was kind of scary, doing accounting and bookkeeping. And so that was me, doing all that for a long time. And, when it was just me that first year, it's like, you're doing everything.
Everything.
You're receiving equipment, you're selling, you're invoicing, you're bookkeeping, you're working with your
whatever it takes,
your accountant, CPA, who's do the stuff for quarterlies and all that sort of stuff, and then to hiring people, and the whole, all the behind the scenes was the tough stuff, and all the busy work. I would say it's like
administrative,
selling you could do, but all the busy work, that was a grind, where it's long hours, where it's like, all right, my wife would go to bed, I'd have to put in extra hours, non-working hours, non-home hours, where it's like there's nights where you're staying up till 2 a.m. and not getting a whole lot of sleep, but it's all that stuff needs to be done. And I eventually, probably a little over a year ago, hired somebody to kind of take on the accounting aspect of the day-to-day, and I think that was kind of a saving grace to both the business as well as my marriage and family, really, because it's probably took a solid 20 hours off my plate just of not doing that busy work of ledgering.
How'd you make it that long with that? Because right, like you're thinking, I gotta sell, and every time I'm in here doing admin, but you're also going, I gotta get paid. right? I got to invoice,
right?
I got to pay my bills. I got to keep shipments going. And so you probably had to be in that until you could really get your head around it, build processes, and then then you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's in a place now where I can delegate.
Where I could hand something off, and I took somebody that I knew, and I had a prior relationship in a company where I'd worked with that person. She was a sales admin for me. And I knew that she had like an accounting background, like at some point before that, and she cut her teeth in a sales role too in the IT space, like, and got along with her well when I worked with her, and I just reached out to her on LinkedIn. I saw that she got out of the IT space and she was working elsewhere, and went, hey, it's been a while, and I enjoyed working with you at the time, and might have a role for you if you're interested. And we got to talking, and so she kind of took over the day-to-day accounting aspect, and ledgering, sending invoices out, and that was I think that was a big relief off of my plate to kind of take some stuff that probably should have been taken off my plate a few years before that, and really help the business as well as personal life.
Oh, for sure. So what was the byproduct of that? So you're getting some of your time back, right? But how long did it take to sort of quickly get her ramped up, and were you able to start to see the benefit of that?
Yeah.
And then where did you reinvest your time at that point?
Right. So that was probably got a few weeks of ramping up, and she's a quick learner, show her a few things and like, I could do this. And luckily she could. And so I was able to trust her in that, and I saw that things were the books were matching up, checking account and our CRM that we store everything, and everything was matching. So, all right, things look good. So but yeah, it's just things just were smooth, luckily, and very fortunate in that regard. But yeah, it was definitely a long time coming, where I think I got to a point where it was like I was working, not doing those long hours, and not going to bed with my wife, a few 2, 3, 4 nights a week, and
oh my gosh,
probably got to the point at one point where she even said, and she did say like I don't if this keeps on going down that road, like I don't know if this can work, and you hear that, you're like, that hits you. Yeah. It hits you like that, and no, it's like giving her a lot of grace, and like just, she was very supportive, and she's definitely my rock, and hearing, just hearing that, like, it's like, whoa, that hits you, and that's like, something has to happen, something needs to change. And I told her, so I'm like, all right, I need to take care of this. And shortly after that is like, I need to find somebody that takes some stuff off my plate. And luckily I found somebody, and
this was different than the admin, the accounting, right?
That was her. That was really hiring that person.
Yeah, got it.
That was truly where I think.
So that was like what your awareness became, because she shared that with you, and so then you would have probably kept going in the madness.
Who knows?
But I think that's part of it, right?
Hearing that, and when that's your wife, your best friend, it's literally saying that to you, like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and you hear that, and like, now something has to happen. Yeah. And we'd maybe had a few conversations about that prior, and it was like, and I'd maybe start to look for somebody like occasionally, and I started trying to interview people, and never could quite find that person where it's like, I gotta trust this person to run the books of at the time multi-million-dollar company, and it's like, I gotta trust who I'm gonna bring on. I don't just bring on anybody. Right. And I was just, luckily I found somebody that I could trust, bring them in, get them up to speed. And that definitely was a saving grace. Thank the Lord for that, and
did that help?
And thank my wife for putting up.
Oh, for sure.
Putting up with the the not having the priorities straight for a long time. And now it's trying to have those priorities straight, and being intentional about being, when I'm home, I'm home. I'm dad. I'm husband, instead of checking my phone, checking my emails. It's, I try to put that phone away, 5:30 when I get home, and check it before bed. And
yeah. Make that time priority. So when that happened, in that season of transition, getting your other person ramped up, were you able to start, not having to do those long hours? Is that really where the benefit was?
Yeah.
So you were able to start going to bed, at a good time?
Start going to bed with my wife.
Yeah.
And
this is a couple years back now. At what point?
Yeah, it's probably a solid year, probably a year and a half.
Okay.
I would say somewhere in that 12 to 18 month time frame, where really got that marriage back, got that our good friendship, that we grew together, and being a better dad, just being present, not having hearing your son or your daughter say, put the phone down, put the phone down.
Good reminder, right?
That stuff hits you.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Well, I think the question I always have, and I think recently the idea of the slow fade, right, came up, but that's how it happens, right? You're grinding, you're working, you got your blinders on, and that's your role.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, there's some road bumps, and you're not really aware of it. And before you know it, you're burning the candle on both ends. I can relate. Like that's part of my story too, right? And your wife goes, "Hey, I'm right here."
Right.
And so good for you, And so what did you learn from that lesson to be able to find that balance between, you don't want to hire someone too early and just kind of throw money away.
Right.
That's what it feels like. Versus being proactive to decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to build this company. I'm going to do it the right way. And so this is a couple rodeos in for me. And I'm now I'm building out things where ahead of time, before I even need it, and finding that balance between, is it the time? Well, I'm finding, instead of employees, I'm finding contract work, so that I can ease into it without having to go full-time or not, you know? So finding those little wins where you can go, how can I get someone fractionally to do this little bit of work?
Right.
So I don't have to worry about investing a whole salary, for this person that may or may not work out. But what do you think as the company grows? What's the vision for the company in terms of doing what you're doing now, and where do you see it going over the next 10 years? You want to keep going? Is your passion there to build a pretty awesome enterprise?
Passion's definitely there. We're a small cog in the industry, but we're competing against very large organizations and doing well and competing well against those larger entities that are doing 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, or we're competing well in those instances where it's the vision is it's growing it to where we're strategically hiring people throughout the US to be able to build on what we've already been successful doing, where we truly only have a couple outside guys that are in specific regions, and plus through four guys in Minnesota that are kind of focusing on Midwest and everything else.
Do you know the path to growth? Do you see it, or do you feel like it's kind of to be determined? Because the question is always, if you know the path, what's keeping you from expediting it and putting that in place now?
It's the path is bringing on the right people to help that grow. It's all about the people, and I'm not going to hire just to hire. And there's also not that money isn't necessarily that
main driver.
The main driver. I'm a simple means kind of guy. I drive a vehicle that's got 150,000 miles on. I've never owned a new vehicle, and so there's not necessarily a driver there, but there is that competitive drive to want to keep getting better, to want to build something and be proud of it. But it's bringing the right people on at the right time, and while having the know-how that we can support that, and bringing on somebody else means we got to hire people here, hire more techs, hire more admin staff, hire inside sales and all the processing that comes with that. So it's there's a vision to grow that, and it's just growing that in a scale where it can be handled properly.
Is there a time?
And still take care of the current business and the customers, because we're good with customer service and not over promising and under delivering. So
right.
we're good at that. So I want to keep it at that.
Do you feel like the people, the role, you know who to hire, but the actual person is it more of a timing thing and finding that right person? Because I'm just curious, if you were to sit back and say, what if I invested in a people person, right, to help with all of some of this and some of that, but more importantly, to go find these roles
right.
to support the growth strategy, right? And basically removing that from your role. And because like it's what happened with the accounting person, right? Like it happened to be the right person, right timing. Mm-hmm. And had you have just gone out and forced it, you probably wouldn't have been able to make that hire at that right. particular time. But on the flip side, if you're saying, hey, there is a path to growth, right? You look at your budget, you go, yeah, we can support it. It's going to mm-hmm. take a small step backwards to pay someone. However, that's a 1 year or 2 year investment because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this off my plate. I don't have to hire. I don't have to go look for this. Have you considered that? Just thinking about, building a sales plan that then you can back into.
Yeah, definitely. Probably thought about all of those things and what can I take off of my plate and how can we and when can we start to bring on people in different locations where, feet on the street.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to sell to someone if you're actually there. But again, having to support that and a lot of my hires have probably been made by my technique of I'm in sales. I'm going to sell myself and my company to these people and, reaching out to them on LinkedIn and say somebody that's, maybe not working or maybe is working elsewhere and like, hey, I might have something that you're interested in. I think my first outside hire that I hired was a guy down in Texas, and he wasn't working at the time, and I could see that on his LinkedIn, but he had good experience that I thought would translate well to what we were doing, and sold myself and our company well to him, and he's like, I want to give this a shot. He worked for a very large organization as a sales engineer, and he took a sales, regional sales manager role, and the success with that kind of, along with a few of the people that I hired locally, and especially one where you saw that success when people are positioned strategically where they are.
Yeah. If
you're there and you're out, doing conferences and doing road trips and, flying out to see people and doing meetings where when you're doing that and creating sales that way, you could see the path to growth if you have people positioned elsewhere. So that's where I definitely see the company going. If we have people everywhere, 5 or 6, maybe 5 or 6 guys covering, throughout the U.S., specifically in a specific region where they're covering a 4, 5, 6 state territory.
Yeah.
I see that where we're, definitely where we're heading, and but yeah, and trying to take things off my plate, like you asked, it's how do I do that, and that is all the things running through my head on a daily basis. The stuff that you think about, probably when you shouldn't be thinking about it, and
the fire, putting out fires, right? And a lot of times it's like, okay, I want to keep the ball moving. I don't want to forget about how we got here, right? And juggling and sometimes it's hard to really understand where the kinks are, where you're spending your time.
Right.
And I recall that, like it took me a long time to be able to say, what is it that I do? I do a lot. Like you said, I'm working on the sales. I mean, I'm sure you would probably look inside your brain and say, I probably have about 20 different projects I'm working on, right? And, between different employees and what you have for them and the way you see, a certain market developing, right? And the next trade show and all the list that has to be done for that. And, the strategic opportunities you're working through. I get it. It sounds like my old days of fun.
You've been there.
I've been there, but it's so cool to hear another guy journeying it. So that kind of brings us to this point of how do you, as you're there, realizing that there's this really specific choice to determine, it sounds like, how much and how fast you want to grow, which is a great spot, right? You can really throttle it, which is what I hear you doing, right? Yeah. You're throttling it, you're not putting the pedal to the metal, because if you were, you would just go higher and say, go, 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 go. But you're doing it in a conservative way, finding the balance, but also saying, hey, if I go all in on this, which you are, what gives? If I go too far this way, what gives? And so what do you have in place, from a schedule standpoint? How have you designed your schedule to protect it, from the past, right? Like being able to not have to do the things in the nights and the weekends. Sounds like you putting your phone away has been good, but what have you had to work on specifically to be intentional, to be with your wife and find time with her, to be able to then set some limits around when you travel, how often you travel? What have you had to do creatively to make it work, to still grow, but keep your life sane?
Right. I mean, it's being intentional about being a husband, being a father, and being present, truly. And my wife even got this kind of a lockbox that we've kind of started to use as like, you're putting your, we're gonna put our phones into this when we get home, and so we're not putting it in there every day, but we are intentional about. And I specifically, because I was the one at more so at fault, right. Where I'm phones at the dinner table, so I'm a lot more intentional about, and I can see it in my head. I'm always be present, be present, be in the moment, be a good dad, be a good husband. So I think that's a big thing, and just having the phone away and being present. And then mornings wise, it's trying to get a workout in, having my mind right, and being there when my kids are waking up, helping them getting ready for school, take my daughter out to the bus stop, and things like that, where it's creating intentionality about actually being present, and surrounding myself with the right people, our church, our local church, or small groups, Christian business group with yourself, transitioning from instead of just listening to sports on the radio, or it's listening to the right podcasts about like something like a dad awesome, and how to be a good dad, and even your podcast, and mixing that into my life, where you're having that that good, and a godly message, where it's you having more good in your life, that's gonna set yourself up for more of a success in all areas. And really that just intentionality of, all right, be present, listen to things that are going to help grow you.
Yeah.
And have those conversations with your wife, and people in a small group. That's and just surrounding yourself with the right people is definitely good. But it's really on me to have that intentionality, and I think that's just been the biggest thing, and trying to, even now I'm trying to put things in my calendar, like, all right, you're going to work out in the morning, get up at 5, get a workout in, and then try to fit in some a message, good message, whether it be scripture, whether it be a daily devotional, or trying to catch a podcast, on messaging of being a Christian, or Christian mixed with business, or Christian mixed with being a good father.
Yeah.
So trying to have a good blend of really all that. Yeah. But really it's just the intentionality and being there in the moment.
Awesome.
That's truly probably helped all aspects of my life, with marriage and being a dad.
So you rattle off a bunch of stuff. That's good stuff. And I think it's a complete shift from maybe what you were doing before. Where have you seen fruit, or even for yourself personally, fulfillment, seen relationships? Because I know there's a trade-off, right? As soon as you go from, grinding like a machine, and then coming home and checking your phone and all of that kind of like pushing you, and now saying, what? I do value my wife. I do value my faith and how I live, and I do value my kids, and, and I get that, right? We're going this hard, and like, oh yeah. So then we come back a little bit and we feel the imbalance over here. We're like, well, I feel guilt because I should be working harder, right? Do you have that struggle? But I think sometimes some people are worse than others, but
no, it's more so you're thinking about how can I be a better husband and a better dad. Especially when you're home, it's like, yeah, I could be doing this and that for my business, but it's like, do I need to? Is that what I'm really called to do? I'm more so called to be a good dad and a good father and a good steward, a good person telling a good message and story than growing a business to as far as it can go. Right. That's not necessarily my calling. It's like I'm doing this and we're doing well with it, but what do I want to be known for, or remembered for? I'd rather be known as a good dad, a good husband, good person, a good person in the community, more so than, gosh, that guy, he ran a great business. He ran a great business. He made a lot of money. He's successful. It's you start to try to, you think about your priorities and what actually matters. Mm-hmm. What's going to give you goosebumps and all that sort of stuff. And you find real quick what truly matters. Yeah. And luckily I found that out in time, in a good time to be able to know what needs to be done. And my wife and I are intentional of creating time for just us. We do vacations where it's just us, and we just got back a couple weeks ago from a vacation where I was probably one of the first times I've been able to truly unplug it for the majority of the trip, and it happened right during Chinese New Year, which is a good time for me, where I don't have to be talking with manufacturers at weird hours of the night, and so that was just a great time to unplug. And we even our small group is going through this this transition of how we're gonna do the small group, and we're going through this dream guide of different how are you with your faith, and how are you marriage, and everything involved in in our everyday life. And we're going through this guide, and we even started going through a couple of the pages while we're on our vacation. So I was like, we're sitting there having chips and guacamole out by the pool, and we're going through this dream guide, talking about, hey, where can we improve in these areas and these areas, and just talking throughout even that trip, just how much better our marriage is now than it was even 12 months ago. Yeah. So it's just growing in that journey with her, and the group that the groups that we're a part of, which have helped too, and some of the guys that I'm close with, that you could bounce some things off of, like, here's some things I'm struggling with, whether it be personally or business wise, or what do I do here. And it's it's good to have the right people in your corner, and
that's good, man. And you're right, like having that community where they get you're doing life together. There's some friendships that have developed where there's trust. You can share things that are probably in a safe place. That's not going to put you in a situation where someone's judging you. And and at the end of the day, like, we are stewards, and we're called to love God and love others and make disciples. And part of that is continuing to understand what He has for us. And part of what we do in our work is that, and bringing glory to God, but often it sometimes becomes our entire focus. So cool to hear you bring that back, and walking through the journey with a sense of faith. And how has that influenced your company and maybe other people you work with? Have you seen any of these things, these changes, walking through the journey, putting God first and being integrated in faith, bringing that into your own company, in a way that maybe doesn't necessarily put posters on the wall of scripture, right? But sometimes it's just about how we choose to live and how we choose to act with ethics and those types of things. What have you seen?
Yeah, I think just your employees being aware that you do have a faith background and you're a family man first. While faith and family first. So it's interesting. I've even had one of my employees come to me just knowing that hey you're part of a church, and he'll bounce things off me as it relates to that with things that he's dealing with, and it's like I never saw that
right. In other enterprises,
that being even a possibility. Just I was when I was born, I was baptized in a Catholic, but kind of got away from that in childhood. And then my wife is what meeting my now wife is what truly got me into the faith background and faith community. And I don't know where I'd honestly where I'd be in my faith journey if it wasn't for her. So definitely owe a lot to her. But yeah, just they know that that's a priority.
Yeah.
And that I do events with my church. I'm in small groups. I'll do men's coffee occasionally. 6:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. Haven't done as much as I did, but they know that there's certain times where they might not be able to reach me. Once a month on every second Wednesday. Men's business group.
Yep.
They're not going to be able to reach me for a couple hours.
Right.
And then just bouncing. It's like some people will bounce things off me just because they know that I have that background, and they know that if they request time off for something family related or anything, that I'm probably going to say yes, and that's not going to be a problem. Yeah, take care of you.
Yeah.
Go be with your family. Go be with your friends. That's first.
Yeah.
This is second.
Be a human, right? And you're seeing them for the fact that they're not just a body doing work for you. They're a real, real human, and they're seeing the way you live, and they're understanding that you have these priorities. And it's a flattering thing if someone's coming to you with that, as a boss, as an owner of a business, and saying, hey, this is where I am. Right. That's amazing. You're doing, there's fruit from what you're doing and how you're living, that someone would be able to trust you in that environment. So,
right.
And to your point, like, there should be more of that, for all of us. And the way we live influences so much of what people see and helps determine them sort of the path that they could be on. And so cool, man. Well, I appreciate all the insights, and you're kind of rattling off again some great things. A Christian business group that we're a part of, is something that I was looking for years, being able to talk to guys where they truly understand the struggles that you just described, right? Trying to build a business, but also keeping a happy wife and a family that's intact. But really, when you break it down to it, the only way to do it is not on your own strength, it's on his strength. And I just know when I'm off that track, if I'm not in that every day, it shows in my attitude, it shows in my tone of voice, it shows in my sense of I gotta go, right?
Yeah.
Stop and slow down, because this is the long game, and the long game is hopefully it's 80, maybe it's 90, and I have to remind myself that, because sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 10:24, like gotta be at the next thing. It's like, wait, if I don't do it right now, nothing breaks.
Right.
Do I have to even do it today? And then I got to a point where it's like, okay, I don't want to do these things. I'm going to build a process that allows me to take these things I don't want to do and get them to someone who's more capable or competent and has the capacity to sit there and figure this out. And so I got a VA, and that was just like, oh my gosh, every email, it reduced so much stress just by not having to go open the phone and like, oh, what's going on? What's hot? And now I get an IM or a text saying, hey, this might be urgent, take a look at it. And I'm like, huh. And so the cost of someone in the Philippines is fractions,
right?
Small investment. So for any of those that listened, the process of building out a VA has been incredible. I think we started at $6 an hour. Now I have her at $8.
Wow.
And full time.
That's crazy.
So, at the end of the day, it's what we're all called to do, is live in the areas where we're most gifted. And if that means sales, then then you got to hire operations, right? If that means leading the company, then you probably have to think about your activity in sales and the other areas and start to create department leads, right? But so fun to dive into that, and building of a business from scratch, from an idea, having a supportive wife along the way, having her being willing to step into you and say, Sean, this isn't working. And then for you to say, that rattled me, and that was enough for you. And maybe there's some, okay, I'll do that. And maybe there was a small season where you're trying to navigate, how do I do that? Right? Because nothing ever happens like that. When she said that, I'm sure there was a journey for you to go, you know what, she's right. That took some time to process.
100%.
Right? And then who's the right person? So, amen. But at the end of the day, it's progress over perfection, right? It's, are we moving towards the way God made us to be? And if we only look at this day or this week, you have to do both. Today has enough worry of its own to be worried about tomorrow. But at the end of the day, if you're not thinking about tomorrow or the next year or the next 10 years by casting a vision, there's a time and a place for that. So the EOS model, for those that read the book Traction, do you guys have that? Have you implemented EOS? Have you read the book Traction?
I'm not a huge reader. Definitely more of a podcaster and ebook. Don't think we've done Traction, but my wife is good at giving us some things that for me, it's going to be
organization.
It's more so audiobook, and
okay.
how do we navigate through challenges of raising young kids,
right,
and things that come up, and controlling your emotions, and what do I do in this situation, and how to kind of navigate that, and then and then obviously mixing in God as well. So I'm definitely more of an ebook kind of a guy, and
well, I think there's a lot of
podcast.
that.
Getting lost in a book has never been my thing.
Yeah, but, I'm with you. Well, that there is, I think, an ebook version of that, and but EOS is massively popular and from this book Traction, and so that's kind of how I believe how it started. But the framework around it is, setting that vision and mission, aligning your 10-year plan, and being clear on what your core purpose is, and having the right people in the right seats, and having a scorecard, right, and then having the weekly cadence of working on the thing called rocks. You've probably heard of that, where you're working on these big things, right? And so building the business, working on the business, not in the business. But dude, so much to talk about. We could go all day. Any last things you want to share about your journey? I think for me, I'm excited for a new season coming up of Fathers for the Fatherless bike ride. I mean, you're in shape now, that Mr. Peloton over here.
Peloton, and after not riding a bike for when we first started 2 years ago, probably the last time I rode a bike truly was like mountain biking as a kid, and now it's like I actually have fun and want to bike more than we're maybe scheduled to ride that week. And I suppose the competitiveness in me kind of just like, I want to do more, and I want to push my body to the limits, and even on the Peloton, it's like setting PRs and getting good outputs.
A year later, still setting PRs and stuff is so fun.
So it's fun, and I enjoy it, and it's a good way to stay in shape. So but it's just continuing on my faith journey, and while managing running a business and prioritizing home life and that work life balance. It's key for any listeners that they got a family, they got a business. Make sure your priorities in the right place, and know what you're called for, and know what truly matters, and put your core focuses there, and the rest should hopefully kind of fall into place as it should.
100%. I think you're right, and it's really, God has rules for this. It's like putting Him first helps you understand, okay, there are areas in my life that I need to submit to Him and surrender to Him. And when you start thinking about it that way, because you've put Him first, He's giving you a frame of reference on what really matters.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around that. And, until something comes up, you're like, boy, I don't know what that means. It's just like, go, I got stuff to do. So So good to have you here.
It's all his when it comes down to it.
Amen. Right. That's the stewardpreneur way. At the end of the day, it's all God's, and he's called us to a mission and a purpose, and Amen. He's inviting all of us to find it. So, but thanks for being here today. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. We will see you next time.